I sat 7 years ago by the pool after a friend had invited me to go with him to share a vision that he had for church leaders and for a work to be done there. And I saw that God had equipped me with some things that folded well into what God had given him. So I said, Lord, if you want me to do this for the rest of my life, I will. And evidently he does. So I'm going. And it's taken that period of time to get things ready and for my wife to get ready and think it's a good idea. And so Tuesday that'll start.
Tell us about your mission.
I'm going to tell you about it. A little sampling of Monday night interface there. 15 or so years ago, I was pastoring a little church in Azle, Texas, where God had blessed us to birth a little congregation. A bunch of homeschoolers, ended up being a bunch of homeschoolers. Our Sunday morning parking lot looked like a used van lot. And we had a wonderful time in a great little church. But God called me in a dream to go somewhere else and leave the pastorate and just go be the friend of another pastor that I really didn't know very well. And so I did, because I've learned one thing, I think, and that is that doing what God wants you to do is a whole lot better than doing the other thing, because the other thing doesn't work. And so it wasn't hard to do, but I didn't know that at that time I was going to set aside essentially the calling He'd put on my life for preaching, for teaching, nurturing and pastoring a congregation of people, which He had given me when I was 16 years old. And I was going to set it aside for this period of time, about 15 years. If He had told me that in the beginning, I might have had a harder time obeying, but I probably would have anyway. During that time, He gave me some relief. He let me serve my city as mayor, so I tell people I got to pastor a city for a couple of terms. And then we both got tired of each other, so went on to other things. But I had this stirring in me continually, a desire and a hunger to exercise my pastoral gift. But I knew I was on hold. A prophet told me one time, he said, Leck, God's put you on the bench. I said, well, yeah. He said, but it's a workbench. It's a time of preparation. And that has proven to be true. I wouldn't stir that gift up in myself because I knew He wasn't going to satisfy it. So I let it simmer. And then 2-3 years ago, something like that, I began to get a sense that He was going to release it. So I began letting it stir. And 2 Aprils ago, I was sitting in church on Sunday morning. My pastor was preaching something good, I'm sure, and I was stirring about this. How are you going to do this? I know not to open the door myself, okay? But I want to be standing next to the door when it's open, okay? So, hey, Lord, what are we going to do? And He gave me a promise. And it was like, it wasn't verbal, it wasn't audible, but it was crystal clear. And He said, if you'll give me 3 years, I'll give you 20. I did a little quick math and I said, I'd be 80. I'll take the deal. And so I've been in a period of 3 years. I'm 2 years into it now. Been in a period of preparation, and hopefully I'm keeping my end of the bargain. And when we get to 80, and I've had an opportunity to be fruitful and live and be fruitful for 20 years in ministry of some kind or another, I'm going to try to renegotiate the terms on the agreement. see if I can get an extension. But part of this whole thing is going to be about Nicaragua, Central America, wherever else God takes me. I was a home builder, and my wife and I worked together, and we went to lunch one day, and I'd had this song on my mind and in my heart all morning. Beautiful. It's Nicaragua, Nicaraguita. It's a love song to the country of Nicaragua, and it's a Sandinista ballad. And I'm not a Sandinista, but I love Nicaragua. This was going over in my mind, and I have a beautiful guitar rendition of it. And so I was playing it. I said, Cynthia, do you want to hear a beautiful song? As we went over to the ATM machine after lunch, she said, yeah, I do. I plugged it in and played it off my little iPod. And oh, she said, that's lovely. What is it? And as I started to tell her, I just broke down crying. I cried my way through the ATM, and I said, we got to talk. So I went over to Trinity Park and parked under a tree, and I said, honey, I've got to be caring for God's people. We got to do something about this. So it had been it was resurrected to that point. Turns out that, as God showed me later, that was the beginning of that 3-year period. On Tuesday, I'm going to Nicaragua, and we're going to go down there and do a lot of different things. But one of the things that we're going to do, and the thing that this all revolves around, is we're going to take poor families. We're going to do what's called a large microfinance program, about a $4,000 loan, 3 or 4, something like that. And we're going to put them to work on small farms. We're going to enable them to have their own business, their own family enterprise. We're going to group them into groups of 7 to 10 co-ops. And we're going to help them get their product to market, sell it, be productive. And then we're going to establish export mechanisms where they can then ship to the United States when they have product that's appropriate for that. And so along with that, I'll be caring for some pastors and loving on them and ministering to them and to some of their flocks and doing whatever God gives me, whatever He puts in my hand. One more little thing about God's provision for this. About a year and a half ago, maybe, something like that, I was sitting in the city of Matagalpa up in the mountains with my friend Silvio Mendez, who has Quilombe coffee. And he said, Leck, when you come down, how's that going to work? I said, well, I'm going to have to find a place to live, and I'm going to have to find a way to make a living. And as I sat there eating their food and enjoying the conversation and the fellowship, Silvio said, you can live right here. I'll finish this little apartment for you. You can live with us. It reminded me of Jesus' instructions. Go into a certain city and find the sons of peace. Live in their house and eat their food. So as I was eating their food in their home, they invited me to live in their home. A few months later, I emailed Silvio. I said, Silvio, we'll need to furnish the apartment, so would you let me know about what you think that might cost so I can be prepared for that? How do you want to handle the food? Because you've got the only kitchen. May we use the services of your housekeeper? And we'll need to decide how we can contribute to the utilities. And he emailed me back and he said this. The apartment will be finished and furnished for you. Our food will be your food. You may use the services of our housekeeper, and we'll pay for the utilities. And if you want to do something, you can. So all I need to do the will of God is an airplane ticket and a quarter to ride the chicken bus. And I'm good. So with that in mind, Tuesday is the day. Don't ever be afraid to adventure for God. He is willing to open a door in His time. Pray and prepare to be standing next to the door when it opens and just step through it. The rest of it is His responsibility. And I hope I can still say that next summer at this barbecue.
Thanks, Leck.
I got my ticket. I just need a quarter, so.
Let's have you have a seat in the chair here.